Hola a todos. Welcome to a new episode of How to Learn Spanish. In this episode, I want you to determine your motivation and set a goal. So, up until this point, hopefully you've listened to all previous episodes leading up to this episode. So, at this point in time, I would really like you guys to be listening to real Spanish, just like I talk about in the very first episode. You're listening to whether it's a podcast, whether you're watching a Netflix series, maybe you're watching a movie, or just simply listening to the news. The idea is to be at least hearing real Spanish so that you, first of all, know what it actually sounds like. That's going to really program your mind to begin being a lot more receptive to producing the sounds, the pronunciation, to actually getting your mind wrapped around the language and how it is spoken in real life. That is definitely something that I think every Spanish learner should be doing, and really any other language that you're trying to learn in the future. Make sure you're actually listening to the real language. Even if you don't understand a damn thing, it's okay. All right. So I've also recommended that you're studying in chunks using the Pomodoro technique. And I talk a little bit about what fluency is. That's to kind of give you a target, something to work towards. And also in the last episode, I talk about beginning Pimsleur Spanish, the Pimsleur Spanish audio program. It's one of the best tools you can ever use for learning Spanish. And they have multiple levels. Each level lasts 1 month. So technically, you could be doing all 5 levels, and that will take you 5 months to complete. But again, as I mentioned in the last episode, 3 months, 3 levels is pretty dang good too. And it gives you a nice base. So what I want to do in this episode, hopefully we're doing all of those things right now. And what I want you to do is to continue doing those things. Okay, continue doing those things. And realistically, as I've said, you could be doing just that for the next 3 months. And man, you are going to make a ton of progress with your Spanish fluency, a ton of progress. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of pause and take a look at what is our motivation. We want to determine our motivation, and then we also want to set a fluency goal, a goal. So first off, motivation. So why motivation? Like, is this really that important? Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, well, I'm motivated. Okay, whatever. But what I have learned over the years, what I've learned as a language learner, what I've learned as a teacher, is that motivation for learning languages is extremely underrated. It might be, in my opinion, it's right up there with the top 3 most important things for learning a language. And I've experienced it learning Spanish. Again, I learned French. Then I went on to learn Portuguese. And I had varying degrees of motivation for each of those languages. Sometimes I didn't feel very motivated, and that's when I really was terrible. When I was highly motivated and I had great reasons like kind of behind that motivation, I was unstoppable. I was really making some great progress consistently. And so let's talk about that for a second. So motivation is going to fuel your language learning journey. In my opinion, the main reason for this is because it is going to provide fuel to your language learning, because it's going to give you a reason why. It's going to give you a justification why to learn this language. So I think a lot of college students, for example, a lot of college students of mine that are learning Spanish, they don't have a lot of motivation to learn Spanish aside from just getting credits. So if getting credits is okay, that's my motivation is to get 3 credit hours, that's not going to cut it. I mean, that will get you through a semester, but it's certainly not going to get you to fluency, right? So keep that in mind, that if you have a really weak motivation, try to dig deeper. Try to think of something in my experience, it was always travel and honestly women. That was liking Latin America and liking Latino women. I ended up marrying a Mexican. So that for me was a big motivation. I wanted to be able to travel to Mexico, to Colombia, to other places, and do it without feeling like lost and scared and not understanding anything. And also too, being able to actually communicate with different women, like being able to date, being able to just have conversation, interaction, and it not being a really awkward thing where I don't speak the language and I can't get my message across. So I think that for me was a really big motivation. And then from that, it turned into really loving certain things about Latin American culture. So like the music, for example, I started to really like rock en español. And so I started finding these different bands, these different artists. And I remember I was in my early 20s and I was like, my God, I've gone my whole life and I didn't know about this guy and this band and these people, and actually really good stuff. And so that helped to kind of fuel my motivation. And then I started discovering, these movies and a few different series that I really got into, and that also continued to fuel the motivation. So I think there's a lot of these things tend to snowball, but it is really important. If your motivation is very weak, then try to recognize that and maybe look around for other sources of motivation. And this is actually very similar to like inspiration. So you find motivation, it inspires you to take Spanish seriously and to be very consistent with your routine, with your Spanish learning routine. So as you can tell, without motivation, without inspiration, you're probably not going to want to do something every single day, which is actually what I recommend. That is kind of one of the foundational principles of this podcast, of my methodology, of my belief system, is that you have to do it every day. You have to be learning Spanish every single day. Okay, that's enough about motivation and about that. So let's talk about setting a goal. So after you've determined what your motivation is, or maybe you've determined you don't have that much motivation, you need to work on that, and that's a personal thing. Then set a goal. So like, just to use an example, whenever I did not set a goal with learning Spanish. I just kept trying and trying and trying. I had a lot of motivation, but I did not set a goal. I was not very good at setting a goal. I didn't know how important it was. However, whenever it was back in the early 2010s, whenever I learned, or I guess it was 2015, I think, when I learned French, I actually was setting goals. So I was thinking, okay, right now I'm going to learn in the next 6 months. I gave myself 6 months, I think, to build a foundation in French. So not fluency, but foundation. I knew I was listening a lot. I was doing my French Pimsleur. I was doing a lot of French Duolingo and learning the fundamentals. And I wanted to do that before I went to Quebec City, Canada. And I was going to be living in Quebec City for the summer, for 3 months. And I was working remotely, and I was also studying in a language immersion school. So I wanted to be good though before I went, because everybody speaks French in that town. Everybody speaks French. And I wanted to have a good level. So I set a goal. Okay, in 6 months, I'm going to have a base level of knowledge. So I think it was like an A2 level of knowledge. So still beginner, but at least it was pretty good. And I got there, and then I set the goal by the time the 3 months were over there that I was going to be at a B2 level of fluency. So be able to communicate fairly effortlessly, be able to understand, some really, not everything, but a lot of what people were telling me, and to be able to get by. So that was my goal. And so I set kind of these 6 months, then 3 month goals. And I recommend you do the same thing. So if you are listening to this podcast and you're trying to learn Spanish, I really recommend to set a goal for yourself. Be like, okay, in 1 year, I would like to have 12 months, I would like to have this certain level of certain level of fluency in Spanish. And if you want to review that, go back to the fluency mindset, what is fluency episode. That was going to be episode 3. And check that out. Listen to that. I talk about the different levels, and you can look at that, or you can determine what level you want to try to reach within a year. That's my recommendation. You see a lot of people online. You hear a lot of language learner guru types that are like, oh, you can be fluent in 3 months. You can be fluent in 6 months. And I think that is kind of possible if you are going to be in a country where Spanish is spoken, and you're going to be that's your full-time job, is learning and immersing yourself and speaking a ton and making a lot of mistakes. I think that then it is definitely possible. But again, I like to repeat that from my methodology, for the methodology that I talk about here, the system I talk about, this is a kind of a lifestyle type of methodology where you are going to be learning Spanish on a daily, consistent basis, and it's just your routine. It's a part of your life. It's going to be a part of what you're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And that's just how I see it. Because as you'll learn that, let's say you do all this Spanish stuff up to 6 months and then you just stop. You're not going to remember. You're not going to retain everything. You're going to begin to forget, and it's going to deteriorate over time. So it really is a system that you have to just bring into your life, continue doing it, make it a part of a consistent routine. It's a marathon, and if you continue to run the marathon in an organized and an intelligent way, you make progress like you never thought possible, and the progress never stops. So that's all I have. I just wanted to talk about that today. Determine your motivation, set a goal. Do those things, and in the next episode, we're going to take another step in our system where we're going to begin learning Spanish fundamentals and learning some base, a core foundation of vocabulary, expressions, and grammar. And this is going to serve as the foundation of our course. And if you're watching the YouTube video, if you're just listening to the podcast, you won't be able to see this. But if you're watching the YouTube video, I'm going to share right here a little pyramid that is representative of the system that we're talking about here in this podcast. And it's not built out yet, and it's going to be roughly a pyramid. But you see at the bottom, we have our very first 5 episodes of the podcast, and that serves as the foundation, the base of the pyramid. We have real listening, Pomodoro, fluency mindset, Pimsleur, and motivation plus goal. So that's going to be the foundation. And as you see, we're about to go up a level in the pyramid. It's more or less a pyramid. And in the next episode, we're going to begin diving into some more of the details of Spanish and building a really rock solid foundation. So keep that in mind. I hope that makes sense, guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments over at YouTube, or you can always shoot me over an email at levi@mexicanfluency.com. Make sure to check me out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Mexican Fluency, also mexicanfluency.com. You can access our courses. The Fluency Hour course is going to teach you how to learn Spanish. I'm going to go basically hold your hand step by step, sending you daily emails for the duration of a month, and give you access to a lot of training videos and members-only Facebook group. So all that is there for you. Muchas gracias. Nos vemos en el próximo episodio. I'll see you in the next episode. Adios.